7 Most Gruesome Historical Deaths. If there's one thing that the history have taught us, it's that there are many horrible ways to die. Few of us get to choose when, or how we meet our Maker, but we like to think that when our time does come, it will be as quick and painless as possible. Sadly, this can't be said for some of these deaths from history. Although some of these tragic victims accomplished a great deal in their lives, for better or for worse, they are now mostly remembered for the grisly nature of their deaths. 1. The Brazen Bull of Phalaris, 570 BC, 554 BC. Phalaris was the tyrannical dictator of Acragas, Sicily from 570 to 554 BC. In an apparent attempt to please the ruler, a bronze maker by the name of Perilos created a torture device called the Brazen Bull. The ornate bull was crafted from bronze and made completely hollow, with a door on one side. When the victim was locked inside the bull, a fire was lit underneath so that it quickly heated up, and cooked the person trapped inside. Perilos built special tubes inside the bull's head, which distorted the screams of the victim to sound like the noise of a bellowing bull. When he presented the Brazen Bull to Phalaris, the dictator was said to have been so disgusted by the inventor's ingenious cruelty, that he ordered Perilos to climb inside to demonstrate the acoustics of the pipes. A fire was quickly lit underneath, and he was tortured in his own creation, until Phalaris had him removed and then thrown off a cliff. He didn't want his corpse to ruin the bronze. However, Perilos had the last laugh, when Phalaris was overthrown by an uprising led by the general Telemachus. The former ruler of Acragas was roasted alive inside the bull. 2. Horn into King Edward's anus, 1284 to 1327. Edward II was the King of England from 1307 until 1327. Edward's reign was particularly chaotic, and he was widely criticised for a failed campaign against Robert the Bruce in Scotland in 1314. He then faced mounting opposition, when he successfully suppressed a rebellion during the Despencer War in Wales during 1321-22, and killed or exiled many knights and barons in the aftermath. When Edward's wife Isabella was sent to France to negotiate with her brother King Charles VI, she became the mistress of Roger Mortimer, an exiled baron, and the pair rallied a small army to invade England. Edward was deposed in 1326 and imprisoned in Berkeley Castle, leaving the throne to his son, Edward III. In September 1327, the new king was told that his father had died. Rumors quickly circulated that Edward II had been killed under orders from the new regime, and the accounts of his death from this period are very grisly. It was said that the former king was pinned down, and had a horn pushed into his anus. A red-hot poker was then inserted into the horn, burning his internal organs and leaving no outward trace of foul play. Many historians dispute the validity of this medieval gossip, and believe it to be propaganda against the deposed king, especially because it ties in with rumors which said that he was into other men. But the supposed death of Edward II remains a sordid, although fiercely debated historical tidbit. 3. Cato the Younger's hanging intestines, 95 BC, 46 BC. Cato the Younger was a Roman statesman who was fondly remembered for his moral integrity during a time of widespread political corruption. Cato was a staunch defender of the Republic, and he frequently clashed with Julius Caesar during his rise to power. Following Caesar's defeat of Pompey at the Battle of Phasaelus and his subsequent appointment as dictator of Rome, Cato showed that he would rather kill himself than live in a Rome ruled by Caesar. In 46 BC, Cato tried to kill himself by plunging his sword into his stomach. However, Cato had an injured hand and only managed to stab himself once before falling to the ground. When his servants rushed in to find him lying on the floor covered in blood, and with his intestines hanging out, they immediately sought out a physician. The physician apparently stuffed Cato's intestines back into his body, they had not been pierced by the sword, and sewed him back up. However, when Cato regained consciousness and saw that he had been saved, He immediately tore at the wound, and pulled his organs back out. He died shortly afterwards. 4. David Douglas's mysterious death, 1799 to 1834. David Douglas was a Scottish explorer and botanist who travelled to America in the early 19th century, on plant hunting expeditions. He was allegedly one of the first recorded mountaineers in North America, claiming to have reached the summit of Mount Brown in the Canadian Rockies, and he introduced many trees and conifers into cultivation, including the Douglas fir. However, the botanist's legacy and achievements have been overshadowed by the very unfortunate and mysterious nature of his demise. While walking along a trail on Mauna Kea in Hawaii in 1834, Douglas fell into a trapping pit which had been dug to capture cattle. It is unknown whether a bull was already in the pit or if one fell in afterwards, but when Douglas' remains were found, his clothes had been torn, his body was mangled and his head covered in fatal gashes. The bull was officially blamed for the death during the subsequent autopsy and investigation, but some believe that Douglas was murdered by a shady English criminal living on the island, who either deliberately led him into the pit, or butchered him with an axe and passed the wounds off as being inflicted by a bull. 5. St. Lawrence roasted to death, 225 to 258. Many saints have faced grisly and brutal ends, as they martyred themselves for their religious beliefs, but it's hard to top the death of St. Lawrence. In 257 AD, the Roman Emperor Valerian passed legislation, which ordered Christians to worship the Roman gods or else lose their titles and property. Further refusal could lead to banishment and execution, and as a result many prominent Christians, including Pope Sixtus II, were executed for their defiance. St. Lawrence was one of 7 deacons, who were also killed during this time. When he was approached by the Romans, to turn over the treasures of his church, St. Lawrence asked for 3 days to collect them together. However, he instead used this time to distribute the wealth to the poor and the sick, so that the Romans couldn't seize it. This angered the prefect of Rome so much, that he prepared a terrible execution for St. Lawrence. He was placed on a huge iron grill heated by coals so that he could be roasted to death. Apparently as he was cooking, St. Lawrence was said to have quipped, "Turn me over, I'm done on this side." A witty remark which later made him the patron saint of cooks and chefs. 6. Emperor Valerian drinking molten gold, 200 to 260. It wasn't long before Emperor Valerian got his punishment for his heinous persecution of the Christians. After the disastrous outcome of the Battle of Edessa, in 260 AD, when the Roman army was easily beaten by Persian forces, Valerian attempted to negotiate peace with Shapur I, of the Sasanian Empire. However, the truce was betrayed and Valerian was taken as a prisoner of war, becoming the only Roman emperor to ever have been captured. It was said that Valerian was treated like a lowly slave by Shapur, and was routinely humiliated by being forced to act as a footstool to the Persian king. Writings from this period state that when Shapur finally grew tired of his captive, he forced him to drink molten gold. The body of Valerian was then skinned, stuffed with dung and straw, and displayed as a trophy in one of Shapur's temples. 7. Georgi Doja, eaten by his own fellows. 1470 to 1514. History has taught us that committing high treason is a surefire way to get tortured and executed in the most excruciating ways. Of course, this isn't a problem if you actually manage to succeed in overthrowing a ruler or a monarch, but those who fail are made an example of in the worst ways possible. Such was the case of Georgi Doja, a Hungarian soldier of fortune, who led a peasants' revolt against the kingdom's nobility in 1514. Despite achieving some early decisive victories against the Hungarian army, the revolution was eventually suppressed with force, and Doja captured. Doja was forced to sit almost naked on a red-hot iron throne, while wearing a heated iron crown on his head and holding a heated scepter in his hand. The sadistic mockery of his power-hungry revolution continued as a group of his fellow rebels, including his brother, were brought forward. The executioners cut Doja's brother into 3 pieces, while he was forced to watch. They then used red-hot pliers to pierce parts of Doja's body, cooking his flesh. The rebels who had been starved for days were told to feast on Doja's cooking body. Those who disobeyed were executed on the spot, so the remaining members of the group swiftly followed the orders and began feasting on their former leader. Doja died on the smoldering phony throne, but the men were granted a pardon. That was all from the 7 most gruesome deaths of history. Please subscribe for more and comment to let us know which one you think is the most gruesome death. Many thanks for watching.